What's going on, everybody? This is Jamie Kane, co-founder and CEO of HelpGhost, and I'm joined by my good friend Derek Jemson over at Crowd Computer in San Diego, California. Derek is the service manager that just makes sure the world goes round over there, and I appreciate you jumping on and agreeing to have the conversation with me, man.
Yep, anytime, Jamie. Glad to join you.
Just go ahead and jump in, because I got a couple of questions about your experience with HelpGhost. The first of which is, before HelpGhost, where was your institutional or tribal knowledge actually living, and what did it cost you when it walked out the door or sat in someone's head and couldn't be found mid-ticket?
Yeah, we had a couple of different systems that we had gone back and forth between. There's always this question: how much are you gonna put in the PSA? How much are you gonna rely on ticket notes? And you find really quickly that engineers don't want to go back spelunking through tickets. The search engines inside of our PSAs are not great, and you just have this, these different document management systems that are out there that if you've got a really good one, then you know what it's capable of. But if you've gone through the process of trying to stand one up, or try to learn a new one, then you see how you can pretty quickly end up with different knowledge bases in different places. So with that, we have had Hudu around for a while for document management, but let's just say that there was a long testing period of how it is that we would best implement it, what goes in there, how full of a documentation, uh, how full of a set of documentation do we really need to serve our clients on a day-to-day basis. And so we had quite a few different places. We had SharePoint, with client folders. We've had Hudu running, and then you know the PSA is a place where the rubber meets the road. And so it often served as the best place for us to get some historical information. What did we do? But again, like combing through actual ticket data manually, trying to search for it, it's just not very effective. Some of the outcomes of that are that when you don't have a full amount of documentation, and you've got that thing where your engineers are the ones storing the information, they keep it to themselves. They don't mean to. They just, that's what their experience is. They like to get it and they like to fix things. And senior engineers, maybe not the most hip to sit down and spend their time working out documentation, making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. So we had a lot of institutional knowledge that was creating single points of failure. If one person was not
Hmm.
available, or if they're slammed, because that happens too, then we just get into a place where the actual knowledge that we need to solve our clients and users issues, it's not getting us anywhere, essentially. So we've we had quite a bit of that, and it's natural. It's a normal thing. And engineers shouldn't necessarily be in a position where they're worrying about how good the documentation is for next time. They're concerned with solving right now is issues. And we took it on. We took on a project to try to get some documentation laid out, and just by asking our engineers, hey, what are we going to document? What do we need to be able to help our less senior engineers be able to contribute fully? And it always felt like a manual process, asking somebody, what do you know? And those kinds of big questions don't always produce a checklist of I know this, I know this, I know this, because it's not a part of a technician workflow. It's Technicians do a lot based on muscle and feel. People are expert at what they do because they can get into a platform, and they can work within that platform, but maybe not even necessarily describe what it takes to troubleshoot an issue, or describe, you know in writing, especially like do this, do this, do this. And so the amount of time that it takes to build out documentation in that manual fashion is, it's not that, it's not valuable enough to make it the highest priority for any amount of time. We still have service at the core of our mission, and that means taking care of our clients right now. So it's a hard dance to dance, and it's hard to allocate enough time to make really pristine documentation, especially if it's going to be out of date in 3 months or 6 months, where a project comes along and changes how it is that the client is set up. So those were generally the struggles that we were facing just a couple of years ago. Just trying to think through it as if it was a manual issue and something where we could just write out a portfolio of all of the standard procedures. It was a time consuming affair, and it wasn't the highest value thing we could be working on at the time.
How many hours per week would you estimate that your team was spending on either hunting for documentation that should already exist or resolving problems that they had already solved before?
Yeah, that it's really hard to put a number on, because essentially what I could describe are the incidents that it makes in your service factory, essentially. I don't know how many hours goes on it, because what would happen is that an engineer would work a ticket for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and then get to a spot where a simple solution comes up. It's about somebody moved something, or there's they're working off of outdated information, and they get to a place where they need to escalate the ticket, and the answer is actually really simple. Had it been written down, it would have been a very simple fix, and then a senior engineer takes the ticket and resolves it within just a few minutes. Those are the types of scenarios where we're just kind of grinding against, our own error of not being able to get to the information that is already ours. And these would stack up. You could have 3 to 5 of these a week, and there's 3 to 5 hours, and there's the only thing that you could possibly do is then get into this place where you promote the siloing of information across your client base, and do what we could all recognize might be the wrong thing, which is make sure that these issues only go to this person who already knows how to fix it. And that doesn't help us all take that next step. That doesn't help us get to training somebody up and getting them into that next level, because all they need to do is see the problem and see the solution. But if the problem and solution are not delivered on time, then we're missing an opportunity for training. It needs to be fixed urgently at that point, and there's just a host of issues that pop up around that, and everybody's time could be used more effectively in that scenario.
I know for a fact that you looked at other AI tooling specifically. We had really good, conversations very early on when we met about what you were trying to achieve and what you had looked at, right? What's structurally different in your experience about how HelpGhost handles this specific problem of knowledge automation and centralization from other platforms that you had looked at the time?
We looked at a couple of other products that maybe the best way to describe it is that we were looking into products that were trying to solve a different problem, essentially. Some of these products, there were other products around the same time where the idea was that the engineers' time notes needed to be generated, essentially, with AI. That the knowledge automation was more of a take what's being done and make it faster and more efficient. And that choke point for MSPs is writing good notes. It's making sure that time entries are all all buttoned up nicely, and so we looked at those solutions, and it just seemed like it was early for them. It seemed like there was a lot of experimentation going on, and what we ultimately decided on was that we would go with HelpGhost just because it was a more stable product with better features rolling out, and it solved the problem in a way that we recognized it, that I described, the siloing of information. That was really the thing that we wanted to overcome with it. Was we wanted to make sure that we were making institutional knowledge instead of making individual knowledge. And you know those other platforms that we're looking at, um, in some ways they just didn't the workflow wasn't simple enough. It was aiming to simplify things, but maybe the setup or testing and making sure that it works in our environment, that it just didn't seem to really connect.
Would you say it's fair to say that Help Ghost was solving the root cause of the problem as opposed to the symptoms?
I think that that's fair, and it may be again because of this paradigm that we were after, that the objective was more one of coming together as a team, and less about making sure that our time notes were polished. Essentially, I see the value in that, and getting our engineers more efficient on those types of activities. The grunt work that is a thorn in so many people's sides, that's really important. But at the same time, the focus was on that agility that our team could have, that we could build a knowledge base that would take care of all of the repeatable actions, make sure that we could leverage our junior engineers to make sure that they are staying productive and contributing at full speed. And as soon as we saw how HelpGhost was going to integrate with our PSA, and just appear inside of the tickets, we were able to recognize really clearly, that this would be a tool that is going to achieve that exact aim.
That actually brings me to my next question, which is how seamlessly did Help Ghost integrate into your existing PSA and knowledge based workflows? And then what was the learning curve like for your technicians?
For the technicians, I think the learning curve has been really gentle. For them to onboard it, um, we've really just been trying to drive engagement. That's really what the technicians have needed to know about it, for the most part, is that this is here to help you, and as long as you're using it, then you're going to see that value. You're going to see how it can accelerate everything that you're doing. And if since it is integrating into the PSA as just a pod in the ticket, if my senior engineers are sort of not interested, they don't need help from Hero on something, they just simply don't look at it, right? If they recognize the problem, it's completely in not at all invasive to them. It doesn't change their workflows at all. But for my junior engineers who need a leg up on something or need a reminder of a specific client setup, then they have it just right there immediately, an orientation towards the problem, even if we don't have a repeatable solution already in the knowledge base. That's because of the types of information that we can store in the knowledge base to help orient HelpGhost to each of our clients, and not constraining it to technical information, or making sure that we have a stack that is updated, a list of these are the technologies in play at this client if it's different from our standard. That system of integrating our document management and the PSA into this one tool that's immediately giving a lay of the land for anybody who's any of our junior technicians, just making sure that they understand this client might have this different thing. really, it was just very obvious to them how it is that this was giving them a leg up. Related to
Good.
that is, part of the workflows that it took a little bit of a mental shift on our part, but part of that workflow has been that we could know that a ticket is like an exemplary ticket, like this is how we want to be solving this problem all the time. One of the things that we didn't expect that we pull out as a move every once in a while, we don't do it for every ticket because we
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
spending a lot of time. But even that part of, we got to the end of the exemplary ticket, we want to save this procedure because it's how we want to do everything. We just had to ask Hero to write the procedure out for us, right? And so sometimes even that time crunch, it becomes completely irrelevant because Hero already knows how the ticket went. So just ask Hero to write the procedure out for you. Then it's just a copy paste into Hudu. And so we got a little silly with it, but it is a valuable way for you to, if you're lacking something, you're lacking something. Hero's already seen it. Hero can write that procedure out as well, and then simply you just review it, and then it can go into Hudu, and then it's a part of the KBs. Then you have this seamlessness, and all of that was done just based off of time notes that our engineers are going to write anyway, and the
Mhm.
context of the ticket, and then just this one moment of review, and then all of a sudden anything that is that level of importance to you, anything that you think is going to be that consistent, that repeatable, it can Hero can aid you in making the procedure, and then your engineers aren't going to be complaining that the documenting this issue is taking too much effort. You really just need to review, you know
Yeah.
and you really just need a moment to edit it if necessary at all. But Hero's right there, just cranking out procedures as well when you need it, and it was a revelation for us, essentially. Anything that we deem to be high value, it could just be one question away, one statement to Hero. We want to save this one, write the procedure out for me. So that one's a little bit fun too. It can be a little mind bending. It's sort of like non-prescribed use, but
Yeah.
it's one that works really well and is really impressive.
Well, you guys have discovered a couple of those non-prescribed or non-obvious use cases, and I think that's one of the powerful parts, not to speak for you, but one of the powerful parts about using Help Ghost is that like there's that surface level use case that is pretty obvious, and we're doing a better job of discovering those and putting those out there for our users, but discovering those edge use cases that are so personal to each and every MSP, they're finding those edge use cases that were not completely obvious and have made life a little bit easier, right? Which I think is really exciting that when you're organically finding those things.
That has really helped. Like thinking of Hero as a team member that also needs a little bit of training to understand what's going on at our clients. That has been a really helpful guide in trying to make sure that I can really exact in on what our documentation needs to look like. I'm the kind of guy who can get really carried away on details. If I had my dream documentation standard, we would have 7 fully controlled documents that have every bit of information in them about every single client. That part of asking technical people, like, hey, make this exhaustive list of things, that it can cause some friction. But the like thinking of Hero in this way, where if Hero understands the issue clearly, then any of us can describe it to anybody on the team as well, and using it as a source of quality control, that, oh, there must be something wrong with this document if Hero doesn't get it, because it's not just this integration, right? It's not just that that you have all the sources well integrated, but Hero's smart on its own too. And the model itself, the models that you guys have employed, the it comes up with things that are definitely not in our knowledge base with some high quality input, especially around some of the edge cases for our team. So we have elements of a security operations center. We have elements of being, security minded and threat hunting and these types of really hardcore security activities, but not a lot of our team has a strong background in security operations analysis, for instance. And so the types of alerts that we get off of security alerts, the types of things that we need to follow up on if there's a vulnerability out there, Hero's already prepared to talk about it. This CVE is associated with this type of attack. This is the type of thing that you want to be able to confirm, or these are ways to remediate this specific vulnerability. Those things are in there because the model itself is already smart enough to deal with some of those very, very fine-grained security issues. So, but that idea that Hero can be very smart on its own, but we have, as an MSP, we have a lot of customization around. That's where it is that we need the documentation. So Hero has helped focus us, where it's not just that we could document everything. It has made it so that we can find the most high value targets for what do we need documentation on, and it's really highlighted that difference where we want to talk about customizations that we have built. We want to talk about how people are outside of our standard operating procedures, outside of our main bundle, for instance, in our offering. Those are the places where Hero might not perform because we haven't given it something to work with. And then that shows us that we need to give it something to work with. That's how we can prioritize our documentation efforts altogether. So there's this feedback loop built into this integration that is just constantly helping us find where the high value targets are, find what's going to make it so that we're going to be progressing. How are we going to increase our documentation's maturity? These are the things that we sort of didn't expect when we started. We thought it would just be a really fast search, but it turns out that it's giving us a huge leg up on what should we actually target. What are the things that are going to be most helpful?
So, Derek,
Yep.
you were telling me before we started recording that you brought on two new team members who have worked in an MSP before. They're not junior, they're not fresh, they're not coming with zero experience, but you gave them, HelpGhost, access the day that they were onboarded, and you talked about their reaction to that. Would love to hear more.
Yeah, we've got these two new team members that when I was onboarding them, I go through normal onboarding for a day or two, and then I asked them to add the HelpGhost pod. I made sure that they were set up, asked them to log in, and then I just directed them pick a ticket, open any ticket. And then I asked them what they saw in the HelpGhost pod, and essentially their jaws just were gaping open. Their chins hit the desk, and one of them was just like, your time to resolution must be like extraordinarily fast. Like if everybody's got this, everybody's armed with this, like, what's stopping you from just solving everything immediately? And that's not realistic. It's not realistic to solve all the problems, and Hero can really accelerate the process. But just being new to the team, and they haven't seen what's in our documentation yet. they're not familiar with our clients yet, but it gives them security. It makes them feel that security that, well, we've got this approach that is making it so that they have that immediate access. They have somebody who's going to keep training them. It's just an agent, that's going to keep training them ticket by ticket. And that thing that we talk about, MSPs who are using HelpGhost, when we get together and we talk about it with you guys, um, essentially, new team members coming into an environment where we have Hero, they immediately envision themselves going up half a tier, one tier, because they know how powerful it is, because they're coming from someplace not having it, where they're they have to manually search for something, and they have to go you know hope that the documentation is up to date. They have to go hope that somebody has taken the time to make sure the documentation is good. And here they feel like immediately more taken care of as new team members, because we've already made this investment. We've already shown them that what we're really interested in is helping you succeed ticket by ticket. And what we're really interested in is making sure that you feel like you have the resources necessary to be able to tackle all of the client's issues.
That's it gets me excited, man. So,
Yeah.
but the next question I have is kind of a twofer, right? So it's how does having Help Ghost give you an edge over other MSPs? And what would you say to MSPs that are potentially looking at adding Help Ghost into their stack, and why they should?
Yeah, that it gives us an advantage, because we are going to see fewer and fewer gaps in our knowledge. And just this, coming from talking about onboarding, like I think it's really obvious how this is this is going to be instrumental in bringing aboard new people. So if you're experiencing churn on your team for any reason, making sure that all of this information is accessible immediately for new team members, that's a huge advantage. But really, just if you were a perfectionist, everything that we've talked about today, these are just ways that you could become more and more foolproof over time. You could keep introducing new types of knowledge into your document management system, and Hero's going to keep up and keep getting smarter along with your team. And so it's not like it's not a trick or anything. It's this it's a it's a way that refinement just automatically is going to take place. And so some of the things that we've seen that are most high value are that if you have issues onboarding workstations or onboarding users, and just having HelpGhost be the one who can get the ticket context along with the onboarding procedures. So what does this look like in practice? It's I get an onboarding request from an HR person. They've told me, instead of what roles this person should be assigned in AD or in Entra, what groups they need to be, they've told me the permissions need to look like a specific user. Well, Hero's already going to handle that, and it's going to say recreate permissions based on this user. It's not going to give me a list of checkboxes, in an onboarding procedure that don't fit because the information was given to us in the request in a different way. So Hero is going to adapt some of those things where it's obvious that, oh, okay, we need this information here. It's been delivered in a different way, and since it's working with the natural language, it can fill a gap. It's not going to make anything up there. It's going to just know that, oh, well, the permissions that we would normally go through, this person needs access to accounting information. Instead, it will just tell the technician, hey, recreate the permissions that this other user has. And so you don't have these little things. You could scale that problem to all sorts of different different things that that would appear that way, where your documentation is very literal and you're getting something that's not a 100% well-formed request, for instance. Obviously, if you were in a place where all of that's automated already, then you'd be in a different spot. But for most of the people who are fielding these types of tickets, this would be a common issue that is just not an issue for us anymore. It's like having adaptable documentation, and making sure that the technician's just able to be adaptable with these requests. I had another idea that I was going into. One of the other interesting things that we've utilized is being able to change Hero's behavior with just the organizational instructions, and making sure that if we have like a point of emphasis on something, or there's something across the board that we want Hero to treat a specific way, it's really just one or two sentences to Hero to help orient the procedures that it's going to deliver. So an example of this is that I use this one all the time. Our organizational instructions are based on a completely normal thing that happens with users at our client organizations, where sometimes they have an idea that doesn't really fit with best practices. One of the main examples I use for this is I get a lot of tickets where a user is asking for administrative access or administrative credentials. But what they're actually asking for is for us to help install something for them. And they're not admin on their machine. They shouldn't be admin on their machine. And so what I've done is I've told Hero that anytime anybody's asking for administrative access, you can look for documentation for the client that says who can grant administrative access changes, who would be requesting it, or is it really just an instruction that, you know, we need software installed, right? And so I have this filter all the time that's actually taking the way that our client base talks about their technology. It's not right. It's just a little bit different. But I don't ever want us to be in a position where we're granting administrative rights just because somebody's taking that request literally. And so Hero's actually in there making sure that it has this lens where, oh, this person's asking for administrative rights. This is who we would contact if that's really what they're asking for. And that has actually come up, is that it has happened where then we get a legitimate request from somebody who's approved to make that kind of change. And Hero can validate that immediately because that's what's in the documentation. This person would make that kind of request, and it is already helping clarify the requests that we're getting so that my engineers don't have to stop and think about it. Am I supposed to install this software, or am I supposed to give admin credentials to this person? So the level of control that we have over that, the ability to do it so easily, just say this is a thing that we've seen a lot of, just update one or two sentences describing to Hero what this issue looks like. It's not like a fail safe. Essentially, it's proactive. It's proactive, and it's sort of managerial information that otherwise I would have to review the ticket a day later when something might have already gone wrong. But we have that proactive lens through which we can pass all of the information, and Hero's looking out for us to make sure that we're understanding the requests on the level that the user's trying to make it.
You know, we've been very public about human in the loop, human first AI, augmentation, not replacement, right? And because frankly, you see a lot of AI solutions, their whole marketing pitch is replace headcount, replace, replace, replace. HelpGhost has always been, it's not about replacement, but liberation.
Yep.
right? It's an augmentation, not just automation, right?
Yep.
And you kind of talked about that kind of in the middle of that last example that you gave. How have you seen that ring true in Crown specifically?
Yeah, there's the most basic version is eliminating those clicks. That click that it takes to get even over to your documentation management system, the clicks that it takes to go open a folder. Eliminating that is just the first step, where it's you're keeping people in their interface one screen. You're making it so that they have this powerful tool that's doing the actions to go get that information, and it just keeps everybody focused. I mean, we all know that if you have to jump to another screen, if you have to like get your phone out, there are going to be distractions popping up, and you're going to, even if it's just a minute or two, you're just going to break your chain of thought, and you're going to have a moment of feeling unfocused. So that first layer is there, that smallest layer. The thing that is most one of the things that I'm most uh, impressed with in Hero and its integration with our document management is that the augmentation that we experience on our team is this it's not just getting people to solve harder problems. It's taking the load off of them from being responsible for types of information that they probably shouldn't be responsible for. So the way a client likes for something to be done is in a standard operating procedure document. And Hero has access to it. It's making it so that we don't have to set the expectations for our engineers to keep every detail in mind and every single change to a client relationship in mind. We can just go update the knowledge base. It's been really eye-opening to have this information available so that we don't have to escalate everything. We don't have to escalate to management for a lot of things. If we wanted to, we could put, billing details in there if it ever became relevant. For instance, we could have all of our all of our managerial information going into the same place where we're just getting all of the information that's relevant for the client to the engineers, and we're not burdening them with needing to learn 100 different systems, learn 100 sets of approvers. And we can just be proactive about that, and we can have the information in these operating procedure documents, and it makes it so that it frees up time for everyone. It frees up management's time by eliminating escalations, and it makes it so that we're thinking about how it is that we can streamline any of those processes. We're thinking about how it is that we can get the information to our engineers and not make them responsible for learning it all by memory. And if you are at a big enough scale where you have more than 30 clients or so, then you can't really expect anybody to learn all of the information at that detailed level. And so we'd see that as a kind of that's a kind of augmentation. I framed it as an unburdening, essentially, making it so that people can focus on what they're good at and what it is that is the core elements of their role, and then they can still get good information from everybody else as long as the documentation is up to date and maintained well.
It's fair to say that HelpGhost has increased the capacity of your team.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. HelpGhost has increased our capacity. It increases that technical capacity. It increases efficiency for every position, and it makes it so that everything works as one too. That's one of the things that I've been most focused on since we came aboard. It's that idea of making sure that we have really transparent knowledge sharing, and we have the technical information that's there, but also it's unobtrusive. It's there to help, and it's not in any way getting in the way of any of the technical work that needs to get done.
So I'm going to go back to our last question. I asked it earlier, but you were giving awesome answers. So I'm gonna go back to it. I gave you a twofer. That wasn't a good interview tactic on my part.
No
What would
worries.
you say to the MSP that is weighing adding HelpGhost to their stack?
Yeah, I'd say do it. Some of these things that I've described, we have some particular uses that we've been able to stumble upon. We've done a lot of testing. We've given it a lot of focus, but even just implementing it and seeing what it's capable of, and then starting to refine it. We spend a lot more time up front trying to refine it, and as it has become a more refined product and you guys have added more and more to it, we are spending less and less time um, working on HelpGhost. And it wasn't ever a huge footprint in the first place, but it is becoming a more and more refined system for us. And, we've been able to develop just this idea of hey, what did HelpGhost say about this? Look at what HelpGhost is offering. Make sure that you're doing that before you're escalating a ticket, and essentially those are the things, getting that memory and getting the muscle and feel of using HelpGhost. Once you kind of see it start to improve, then, and once you start to use the document management to improve it, then you just see it kind of take off, really. And so if I were on the fence about it again, and I had to explain it to my old self, I would essentially, I would say, this is going to improve the documentation that you do make, right? It's if you're stuck in the chicken and egg, if you're like, yeah, but I don't have great documentation right now, HelpGhost is going to be the thing that actually guides you to make the good documentation. That's why I wish we would have done it sooner, is because you get to that spot quicker where you understand, okay, Hero's showing me some gaps, and Hero's a tool that can help me fix it. And getting that workflow started early is going to pay off quick, and then it just takes off at one
That's
point.
awesome, man. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We had another one of our partners say the other day that HelpGhost is invisible and visible in all the right ways. And I feel like I heard a lot of the same in your answer. Well, Derek, I really appreciate you making the time, man. I know you're beyond busy, so the fact that you made time to have the conversation means a lot to me. Everybody, thanks for tuning in and taking the time to listen to Derek's awesome answers. Once again, man, I just hope you know how much we appreciate you as a customer, as not just as a customer, but as an advocate, as a feedback engine for us, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. You guys have been instrumental in our growth and making HelpGhost a better product. So I appreciate you being along this journey with us.
Yeah, of course. I am happy to help, because we love working with you guys. We love working with HelpGhost. We mean that as working with you guys as people, and we also love the product. We couldn't be happier that you guys are fighting the good fight, and
Thanks, man.
things are going well for you. So always happy to help, and always happy to share with you guys.
Thank you, man. Well, for everybody listening and watching, if you want to start your HelpGhost journey, all you got to do is go to helpghost.io and we'll get you rolling. Thanks, everybody.